Today I'm going to show you how to paint this cottage-inspired painting. To complete this project, you're going to need the 12 by 12 inch canvas, the paints, which includes white, dark green, light green, blue, a mustard yellow, a rust red, brown, and black. You're also going to need a couple of brushes. I use this flat brush to cover larger areas of paint on the canvas, and this smaller round brush for more detail work. You're going to need a cup of water to rinse your brushes, and a paper towel to dry your brush. I'm also going to use a pencil for this first bit. You might want to use a ruler as well, but you can also eyeball. So the first step is to divide the canvas into quarters. It's a 12-inch square, so I'm going to go at 6 inches and make a mark. And I'm going to sketch out from there. Let's see if this one is. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. You can set aside your pencil now you're done with that. Okay, so the first step is to paint the background on each quarter. So these two quarters are going to have a light white, blue kind of color. These quadrants are going to have a brown kind of woodsy color. So I'm going to start with my whites. I'm going to take mostly white. This might be kind of challenging, but just take the very tiniest bit of blue and even a little tiny touch of brown. And I think that's even a bit too dark, so I'm going to take more white. We just want to tint the white. If you need to even blend in more white, that's totally fine. Sorry for the cat. You can also take this opportunity to paint the edges of your canvas. Okay, I wanted it to look a little dirty in a way, so I'm going to add just a little bit of brown as well. Not a lot, just a little tiny bit to give it some streaks. And you don't have to blend it in all the way either. I'm going to do the same thing here, just a little tiny bit of brown. Maybe I want my streaks to go horizontally, so I can always adjust that. Again, I'm gonna just hit the edges real quick. Okay. I might want to add a little more streakiness. It's totally up to you. It's always easier to get darker. It's harder to get lighter. Okay. I'm happy with that. I'm gonna rinse my brush a little. It's okay if there's still a little bit of white left in there. I like to mix my colors a little. Next I'm going to do the brown quadrants. This is mostly brown, but I'm going to also blend in a bit of this mustard yellow. You can see I've got a little white in my brush still, but that's okay. Adds to it in my opinion. I'm just gonna blend in a little bit more of this mustard yellow to give some more streaks. Again, I'm gonna hit the edges of my canvas. Okay, now for my upper quadrant. Getting my mustard yellow a little bit and the brown. I'm just going back and forth with my yellow and brown to give it that earthy streak. Okay. Okay. Now we're gonna wait for these to dry, but I'm gonna go ahead and paint my doily in this bottom corner. It's okay if it gets a little, if it blends in with the background a little bit, because we're gonna go back and make it pop with some shadows. I'm just gonna use straight white for this. Make sure you can see. And I'm just painting a circle. It's a bit hard to see, but like I said, we're gonna make it pop. I'm just gonna add some little petal-like bits to the doily. I'm switching over to my round brush. I'm just gonna use a little bit of that blue-white color we used, and I'm going to add some little holes in the doily. Again, it's going to be subtle, but we're gonna add shadows, make it pop. I'm basically just making two smaller circles with little dots. I'm going back to my white. I'm just gonna add a little line in between each of the little petals for another little lacy detail. Okay, we're gonna come back to this once it's dry, but I'm gonna move on to this top corner. I'm using my flat brush, my large flat brush. We're gonna add some moss in the corners of this. So I'm coming over here to my greens. I'm gonna take a little bit of both. just like this. And I'm just gonna kind of tap it in. We're not gonna blend it in all the way. We want to be able to see both greens. Just tapping. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're not going for the most realistic painting you've ever seen. Just getting the idea. The illusion of having moss here. And I'm just tapping the canvas. I'm not brushing because it'll add those streaks from the brush. So I'm just tapping to give it some texture. There we go. I think that looks nice. A little moss, a little texture. All right. I'm switching back to my round brush, my little detail brush. I'm going to leave this one alone still, it's a bit wet. But I'm going to paint my letters in, and then we're gonna add details on top of the letters to kind of push them to the background a little bit. So, just a reminder of what we're going for here. Like I said, we're gonna do this one a little bit later, it's still drying. So I'm going to do the L and the E first of all. So I'm going straight to my white. So I'll just show you again. We're just going to make straight capital letters, and we're going to add little triangles to give it maybe a fancier look. Add a serif on there. So I'm going to do this one first. Takes a steady hand, but if you mess up, it's okay. We can always paint over a mistake, especially at this early stage. I'm getting a little blending in here, but I kind of like it, so I'm not too worried. You might have to go over it a couple times. All right, I'm gonna add my triangles pointing down. there's a different type of letter you'd like to do, feel free. This is your artwork. Okay, I'm gonna go up and do my L. See, I'm just starting out with simple capital letters, and then I'm adding the details afterwards. I'm getting a lot of blending from the background up here, but I like it. I'm gonna leave it. I'm not gonna worry too much about it. All right, I'm gonna rinse my brush. I'm moving on to the O in this corner. It's just black. And there's not any fancy serifs or anything too special about this one. All right. I'm gonna come down here. I have the most dry areas down here, so I'm gonna work on my E. I'm gonna start adding in the mushrooms. I'm going to stick with using my round brush. I'm going to get a little white. And I'm just going to draw the bottoms of my mushrooms. It's okay if we mess it up a little bit. We can always paint over a mistake. Okay. Gonna rinse out my brush a little bit. Coming over here to my rusty red color. I'm gonna paint the mushroom tops. If you would like to try to do your tops first and then add the bottom, that works. Just do some experimentation. while my white's still a little wet, I'm gonna get a tiny bit of brown and kind of blend up into this. Kind of just adding some texture and some lines down underneath here. Blend it in a little bit. Now I'm going to my mustard color, and I'm just adding some more detail. Just a line between the white and rust. I'm gonna blend this out a little more. I'm going to come down to this corner and add some mushrooms. I'm making some little gumdrop shaped mushrooms here. Do as many as you like. This one I'm going to do a couple more than the two in the corner. I'm just going to make a little grouping. You can do different sizes, different shapes if you'd like to try a different shape. And I'm overlapping a little bit on my E to kind of push it to the background. So I'm going to do this one a little bigger. I'm gonna add one more up here on the smaller side. Oop. Got a little paint on my hand. It's wont to happen. Okay. I'm gonna come back to my rusty red color, but I'm gonna blend in just a little tiny bit of brown to darken it up a little. It's going under here, just a little bit more brown. All right, now you can paint your stems. I like to imagine they're all coming to meet at a certain point down here. So that's the shape I'm gonna give each stem. They're all coming from the same place. I'm gonna go straight to my brown and just kind of blend these in a little bit. Add a little brown to the darker side of the stem. Oops, I've made a little mistake. That's okay, I'll go back and fix it later. That's the nice thing about acrylic paints. You can make a mistake and just go back and fix it later, because they dry so quickly. There we go. I'm gonna get just a little bit of white. I'm gonna add some white edges here at the bottom, just to give it that little extra detail. I'm happy with that. Okay. All right. After a series of unfortunate events, I did happen to lose the second half of my video, so I've actually painted over these two quadrants and kind of backtracked a little bit. So you might see a little slight variance in what I had just painted in the video, but we're just gonna continue on. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and start painting, here we are, the grass and flowers. I imagined this quadrant to be somewhat of maybe a field. So that's kind of what I'm going for with that one. Right. So for the grass, I actually used my large flat brush. So I'm gonna take my two greens here and not mix them all the way, but just get a little bit of variance here. I'm just gonna paint some grass. I'm holding my brush not at a, kind of at an angle. I'm holding it so it makes my lines vertical. kind of framing out the O. Longer on the sides and shorter in the middle. Okay. I'm going to get a little bit darker. I want some variance with my colors here. And notice I'm pushing up. That way it leaves a nice taper to the grass. I'm also painting over the O a little bit to kind of, it's kind of sitting in the field. So painting right over the black. Maybe go back, get some lighter green. I'm just making layers on layers. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna move on to my round brush, and I'm going to add some little flowers in here. So I'm going to start out with some of my yellow. I'm just adding some little dots to represent flowers. Cool, that's really pretty. All right. I'm going to add a different style of flower next. Kind of one that has several different flowers all in one grouping. So here we go. I'm using the rusty red. You can paint into the sky too. I'm going to move back down to my tabletop with my doily, I'm going to paint my V. So again, it's just a block letter, and we're gonna add triangles to fancy it up. I'm getting black. I'm using my round brush still. Okay, I'm going to add my triangles here. All right, next I'm going to paint my fork and spoon. So I'm gonna need a gray color. I'm also gonna use this gray color to accentuate around my doily and add some shadows. So I'm going to take some white and a little black, and there's my gray color. Alright, I think first of all I'm going to add my shadows, and then I'm going to add my fork and spoon. So everywhere there's a little hole in my doily, I'm just gonna add a little accentuation. A little shadow. This will help accentuate our doily from the background. I'm also keeping it kind of all on this side of the hole. So I'm not doing an entire circle. I'm imagining that it's laying, the light is shining from this side here, casting the shadow upwards. So the shadow will be here on the downside of the doily. All right, I'm coming back to my gray. I'm gonna put my fork. We're also going to add shadows on our fork and spoon. So I'm painting just an oval, adding the handle. I'm gonna rinse my brush. I'm going to my black, and I'm gonna add just a little tiny bit of shadow. Then after that, I'm gonna get a tiny bit of white and give my silverware some shine. Alright, I have my white. That's really nice. While I have my white, I'm gonna add a little decorative plate up here in the corner. I'll show you again. I imagine this to be like a little teacup plate. Alright. I'm going back to my gray, the same gray I used to paint my silverware. And I'm gonna add a shadow there as well. I'm gonna get some of my mustard yellow. This is gonna be like a little gold edging to my plate. Just one line will do. Now I'm gonna go to my rusty red and paint just a little bit of flowers on here. And I'm gonna add some leaves with my green. And I'm just putting little dots. It doesn't have to look exactly like a flower. It's just to get you the idea that that's a decorative plate. Alright. My last step for this painting is up here. I'm gonna add a little butterfly. I also took some black and added shadows in here. I've already done that as well, and that was also lost in my previous video, so I did want to point that out. I did go through and add black to give some shadow. But for my butterfly, I'm going straight to the black with my detail brush. Alright, so there's the body of my butterfly, and going to add black to the top of the wings. Then I'm going to blend it out with red. I'm going to blend to red and then to yellow. You can use just a little bit of water to help blend this too. All right, I'm moving on to just a tiny bit of mustard. You don't have to copy the same design butterfly as me. You can come up with your own design as well. Now just to finish it off, I'm gonna get a little bit of white and add some little spots. There we are. That's all for this painting. Thank you so much for watching. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. Everybody's painting is gonna look a little different, so I really would love to see what you have ended up with. All right, thank you.